Whatever you have here is unholy and must be destroyed.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kenny, and if you like our content and you haven't already, we would appreciate it if you subscribed and maybe like this video. If you feel like it, that would be great. Also, we have a new Patreon set up. We will be releasing extra content twice a month on that starting next week, so that is awesome. Thank you for the 5 people that have done it so far. We really appreciate it. Today, it's just going to be me talking, but don't worry, next week we are releasing an insane cult massacre episode, both me and Stefan talking about it. So subscribe if you want. Be here next week for that. And thank you very much. Let's get on with it. Yeah, so what we're talking about today, honestly, it's one of the least known ones I've ever come across. I came across it very randomly on a subreddit, comment. I can't find a ton of information about it. There's only 1 or 2 things online I can really find detail about it that aren't very short news articles. I'll post those, or I'll put those in the description below. But I haven't seen anything on YouTube about this. There may be some podcasts off YouTube that go into the detail that we're going to today, but this should be the first on YouTube, so it's pretty cool. So on Monday, July 22nd, 2013, around 11:30 p.m., a neighbor of Karen's on Hugh Circle in Homewood, Alabama, would notice the sound of breaking glass. The next morning, Tuesday, July 23rd, a supervisor at the Hobby Lobby in Homewood would contact the police after Karen didn't show up for work. The supervisor would inform the police that Karen was a very punctual employee and that it was very odd that she would not show up for work like this. Around 11:15 in the morning, the police would get no response from their knocks at 102 Hugh Circle, which was the home of Karen and Richard Shahan. The officers entered the house and discovered Karen's dead body on the sofa in the living room. She had been eating and watching TV while she was attacked. She had been stabbed to death, with the autopsy showing multiple stab wounds on her neck and torso, with some defensive wounds as well, and blood was everywhere. Food was also found in her mouth and on her chest. Also, semen was discovered on her body, but there was no evidence of sexual assault, which we'll get into later because that's pretty weird. The window in the basement was also broken, which I assume is what the neighbors heard around 11 at night, the previous night. Also, I said Karen Shahan. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. I'm terrible with last names for some reason. Let me know if that's wrong. I don't know. It sounds right to me. So, Sergeant Andrew Didcott was asked about the murder, and he is quoted as saying, "We don't know if this is a random burglary gone bad or what. We just don't know." Homewood, Alabama was a population of about 25,000. It is a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama, and is actually known for having a pretty high crime rate for such a small city. One of the highest in America for the size. With that said, it wasn't uncommon for there to be break-ins and burglaries in the city, but it was odd for something like that to escalate to this level. To contrast what the sergeant said about this, a resident on a nearby street claims to have spoken to a cop as well, and that cop said, as quoted, "When a burglar breaks in and there's somebody in the house, they get out of there as fast as they can. If a burglar is surprised and threatened by someone, they might push them, he might even knock them over the head with something like a flashlight, but what he doesn't do is hang around long enough to stab someone to death. They're thieves, not killers. They want to get in, get what they can, and get out." And that's the thing. That's very true. For the most part, most burglaries happen in the middle of the day, right? Whenever people are at work, children are at school. Most thieves, most burglars don't actually want to kill anyone. They just want to get in, get whatever is worth the most money, and get out. So it's not, in this one, nothing was stolen, So it was just a murder. It was a very random murder. So, while the sergeant's saying he doesn't know anything, I'm sure he has to say that. Supposedly someone else said, what is the most, common thing to say? And it's, probably not a burglar. But they don't know what it is. Richard Shahan was the husband of Karen. He was a children and families pastor and also the facilities director at the First Baptist Church, which was very close to where the married couple lived, near Lakeshore Drive, which was near their street of Hugh Circle. The church was actually their house was actually owned by the church. Richard was seemingly well liked by the church and the community, and so was Karen. On the outside, no one suspected anything wrong with their marriage. The day Karen was murdered, Richard had set off for Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Their son, Colin, was serving in the Army, and he was based there. His plan was to stop by Franklin, Tennessee, to visit their other son, Kyle, and his children. Once the interim pastor of First Baptist Church, named Charles Carter, basically Richard's backup, and some of the other church leaders found out about the murder, 2 of the church staff members would be told to drive up to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and tell Richard. They were planning on driving him back. So basically, people from the church found out what happened. They're really worried about Richard, obviously. He's somewhere else. And so they say, hey, go get him, bring him back, and, we'll be here to support him. And, the thing is Karen really was loved by everyone in the community. I mean, the police didn't have a clue at this point as to, who would want to do something like this. And there were over 200 people that attended her memorial service, which was held on Saturday, July 27th. And yeah, she was well loved. The thing about it is cops, they didn't really have a clue, but they always look at the husband or the wife, or that they usually look at the spouse first, because honestly, you look at a lot of these cases and that's just how it happened. Yeah, and so with that said, the cops would ask Richard some questions informally, but he was brought in for some formal questioning and interrogation on August 7th. So this is a couple weeks after the actual murder. He was interrogated at the Homewood police station, and of course, he was asked where he was on the evening of July 22nd. And he would explain, how he left the house that day to go visit his sons in Tennessee and Kentucky, and he first drove to Franklin, Tennessee, which was a 185-mile drive. The cops were able to use his cell phone records, cell phone pings, to confirm that he had went to a hotel, had stopped for gas, ate at a restaurant, and went to Walmart to shop for some personal items. He also bought tickets to 2 different movies, which is interesting. And around 3:25 p.m., when one of the movies, either the first one, I'm pretty sure it was the second one actually, finished, he turned his phone off. Doesn't really make sense. Maybe it was at the beginning of the movie, honestly. And at this point, the cops could not digitally track him from that moment. So they had all of these records of where he was going and what he was doing up until 3:25 p.m. on the 22nd, which later that night was when Karen was murdered. So he wouldn't turn his phone on again until 2:30 in the morning. And that showed, when they looked at it, that he had been entering his hotel room whenever he turned it on. I mean, all of this is pretty suspect. I mean, the idea that he turned his phone off at 3:25 p.m. and wouldn't turn it on again until 2:30 in the morning, that's pretty suspect to me. I understand if you go to a movie, turn your phone off. Maybe he forgot. I don't know. We'll get into it. On August 8th, the pastor was taken into custody and jailed for 2 days. This is because there's a law in Alabama that allows a suspect to be held for 48 hours while the investigators do work. If the suspect isn't charged in the 48 hours, he has to be released. So Richard was released. And this had a huge effect on the community. I mean, everyone, they're already devastated that Karen was murdered, and they don't think that their beloved pastor did this. But they're yammering away. They're talking amongst themselves like a community does, and especially in the church. I mean, what do they think? But he really uses the argument that, that he had nothing to do with his wife's death. And after he was let out of jail, he would continue to make sure that people in the church and all their friends understood that he did not commit this murder. And the fact that he remains free was a sign of that. The fact that they didn't hold him past 48 hours was a sign that he had done nothing wrong. And even with the church supporting him, he decided that he needed to take a break from the church. He was invited to a position with the Children's Ministry of Bible Mission International. This would mostly be a mission that would take him abroad for at least 3 years, and he would actually be working in Kazakhstan. His last days with the church would be on December 31st, 2013. So on New Year's Day 2014, he was at the Nashville International Airport, where he was scheduled a flight to Frankfurt, Germany. As he was awaiting to board his flight to Germany, he was pulled aside by Homeland Security agents, and they took him into custody. He had not kept it a secret what he was doing with his future as a missionary. And when the Jefferson County authorities had learned that he was leaving the United States, they believed that he was going to use this as an excuse to go to a country that would not extradite him back to the States. They arrested him in Nashville and extradited him to Alabama. So this is where things get Pretty interesting. Throughout the investigation, Assistant DA Laura Poston had been collecting evidence and would obtain 3,000 of Richard's emails. In these emails, it shows that he was going to go straight from Germany to Russia. So basically, once he enters Germany, he would go straight to Russia and eventually to the UK. Not entirely sure how long it would take him to get to the UK or how long he would wait in Russia, which is interesting because, yeah, I mean, they don't typically extradite from Russia, so it kind of seems like maybe he would hang out there for a bit. Eventually, he planned to become a citizen of the UK. Richard was carrying $27,000 of euros, British pounds, and Kazakh currency. All but the U.S. currency was confiscated from him, and he was forced to surrender his passport. On the 17th of January, he was released on a $100,000 bail bond, and he would stay at his mother's house under house arrest. He would be electronically monitored. In August 2014, Richard would be indicted by a grand jury for killing his wife. Richard's arrest would greatly spark interest in the case again, but what would really spark interest in the case again was what else was found in Richard's emails. He was a closeted homosexual and had been talking to many lovers over the past 2 years before the murder took place. And in fact, the emails showed that he had a boyfriend in the UK and had been planning on marrying him once he got there. There are tons and tons of emails between Richard and multiple men that he had been talking to online, from different countries, but also within the United States, different states. This was a huge deal in the community, obviously, and very much so throughout the church. So much so that most people didn't even believe it right away. But at the same time, a lot of people in the community trusted the police. So I think it was just taking time for them to accept this, which really makes sense. I mean, you know, everyone knows him so well, they're all in the church, and they are going to have a hard time believing that all of a sudden, you know, to them, all of a sudden, he's a gay man, and he has a wife, and he has kids, and they've been married for a long time, and the kids are in the army and in college, and he's a pastor of this big mega Baptist church, and now he's gay and going to go to the UK. I mean, it's a big thing to take in for some of these community members. But what also showed up to investigators were emails to and from Karen that showed that Karen actually knew about Richard's feelings and how he really was. She is quoted in an email saying, "I told him that he cannot keep both lives, that he will have to lose one of them. I said that if he was having any interactions that were not right before God, that he should go to God and be completely honest with him because he knows the way. I told him that God will reveal it to me. I told him that any texting or Gmailing that does not bring glory to God has to go. I told him that I did not want to rub salt in a wound, but I knew that he had been talking to that man, Andrew, about the baby coming, and I did not want any of those men to be involved with our family. He took it well and said that all involvements were over, that they were all gone out of his life," end quote. That was a quote from Karen. So obviously she knew what was up. I mean, we have email proofs showing that somehow or another she found out about it. I mean, he's probably not keeping the secret as well as he thinks he is. She found out and pretty much gave him an ultimatum. I mean, it's either them or me. Even after telling his wife that they were all gone from his life, he was not being truthful. Here is a quote from him to his boyfriend in the UK. Quote, "I am in a legal marriage contract. There is not an acceptable way for me to dissolve that and continue with the things that are important to me, my job and my children. There's only one way I could become legally single, and I have to wait until God grants me that gift. It will come. The woman I live with is slowly killing herself. She is diabetic and refuses to take care of herself physically. Her mother died early with the same disease, and she did the same thing to her body. So I pray and wait. It will happen in God's timing. I pray you don't find me cold and unfeeling, a heartless bitch. I do care about her." So, end quote. Sorry. So, this is insane. So she has diabetes. Karen has diabetes. She's not taking care of herself very well. There's a ton of quotes in this case from the emails. A lot of them are really sexually explicit. A lot of them are very dirty. I cannot read them. I will put them in the links below somehow. But also they're in that article that I'm going to put in the link in the description below. So check it out. There's tons of quotes, tons of emails. You can read a lot of them. They're insane. Anyways, so Karen had diabetes. She's not taking care of herself, and he is waiting for her to die. I mean, he says it in the email that Richard is waiting for his wife to die from diabetes so that he can live his true life abroad with the boyfriend that he has fallen in love with. So that's something to think upon. He's waiting for her to die, and then she dies. So let's get on with it. He also sent emails inquiring about marriage in another country. We're getting to the end here, but, we have a bit more to cover. During the police interrogations, Richard admitted to the homosexual affairs, and he also admitted something else. He admitted that sometime after he turned off his phone on the 22nd, the day that she died, after he was in Franklin, Tennessee, he claims that he went back home to Homewood to receive a breathing machine that he forgot. The prosecutors believe that he returned home to kill his wife. So, basically, he admitted to the cops during interrogation that on July 22nd, when he went to go see his sons, he went to the movie, he turned off his phone. He didn't turn on his phone again until 2:30 in the morning, after he had turned it off at 3:25 in the afternoon. During that time, he told the police he actually did go back home to receive his breathing machine that he forgot. Again, the prosecutors believe that he killed his wife during this time, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, we have everything. I mean, just talking about this. Also, I said earlier that there was semen found in her body. And, I mean, what the prosecution believed. Now, this sounds kind of crazy. I don't know if I'd really believe what I'm about to say. But what the prosecution believed was that Richard had taken some of the semen from someone else, one of the boyfriends, and put it on her body, because there was no evidence of sexual assault. Again, I don't know if I believe that necessarily. That's just what the prosecution believed. So everything seems, though, like he really did kill his wife. So Richard was still out on a $100,000 bond, and his trial was set to begin on April 18th, 2016. But because of several outstanding issues with trial conflicts, this was pushed back to January 9th, 2017. After this, it was rescheduled yet again for May 15th, 2017. So it's just being pushed back and pushed back. However, after everything we have stated here, before the trial could start in May, charges were dismissed. He would no longer be prosecuted. The Alabama Attorney General's office reported that there is just not enough evidence to prosecute Richard. And he filed a motion to drop the murder charge. But because the charge was dropped without prejudice, Richard could still be recharged at a later date if more evidence comes to light. So, when I made this cover photo, right, the thumbnail for this video, it's, while I was researching this case and I was writing everything and I was putting everything down, I was thinking, man, this guy definitely did it. I mean, come on, this guy did it. But the thing about it is, honestly, a lot of it is circumstantial evidence. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse to say that he did or did not do it. I'm just saying a lot of it is circumstantial. Now, I know what you're thinking. What happened to the DNA evidence? What happened to the semen samples that were found on her body? Looking into this, in August 2015, prosecutors revealed samples from Karen's body were still available for testing at a lab if the defense wanted an independent test. The attorneys asked at an August 19th hearing if the evidence regarding sperm found on Karen was destroyed, and at the time, prosecutors couldn't say for sure whether any samples remained. So, that's pretty interesting. There's a chance that the DNA that was found on her body wasn't Richard's, which is, I guess, what the prosecution is saying. If it was Richard's, the prosecution would have enough evidence, I think, to convict him, right? Or they would at least have enough evidence to take him to trial, right? So I don't think that the DNA is his, right? And for whatever reason, the prosecution, which seems to know, because they said that they were still available for testing if the defense wanted an independent test, which shows to me that the prosecution already did the test. So it seems like they know who the DNA is. They just haven't released that information. Not that I could find. If someone else can find it, that'd be great. I couldn't find information on what the DNA is. And the fact that they dropped the trial, to me, means that the prosecutors know that the DNA is not Richard's and that they don't actually know whose it is. But the case was dropped after everything. I mean, you know, we've seen cases with less, you know, circumstantial evidence than this go to trial, and we've seen people get convicted with less evidence than this. I'm not saying he did it. I mean, I'm more leaning towards that he did it. You know, when I made the thumbnail for this video, I put, you know, unsolved mystery with the question mark. I mean, technically, it is an unsolved mystery. I mean, it's unsolved, but is it a mystery? That's why there's a question mark. I don't know if it's a mystery or not. I mean, I think most people believe that Richard murdered his wife. When I tried to look into what is up with Richard now, on April 17th, 2017, his passport was returned to him. But, and I'm not saying this is 100% the truth, what I have seen online is that he is living in Nashville. Now, he did have a boyfriend that lived in Nashville, so that could explain that away. Doesn't seem like he went to another country. He could have. Again, there's not a ton of information on this case in general, and there's almost nothing for what happened after the charges were dropped. There's been no update that I can see. So yeah, there it is. It is a murder mystery. It is a whodunit, but honestly, it's not really. It seems I believe that if he didn't do it, he 100% has something to do with it. I mean, it's just too much. You know what I'm saying? He had to have something to do with it. But what, to the extent that he had something to do with it, that's the real question. Thanks for checking us out. Today it was only me, so I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, me and Stefan are going to cover the Heaven's Gate cult. It is something that I'm a huge, just, you know, I know a lot about it. I've been reading about that for a very long time. Same thing with a lot of cults. Same thing with Stefan. Stefan loves it as well. So we're going to go real deep into that one. And yeah, like I said, we have a Patreon set up. It's going to be in the link, you know, in the description below, the very top link. Check it out if you want. There will be extra content there. Like and subscribe, man, please. If you feel like it, it's not a big deal if you don't, because we never asked for it before and we've gained subscribers, so it's probably okay. But anyways, thank you for listening today, and we will see you next week.